Hello YouTube. So I just happen to have a little bit of time to talk really briefly on the transmission dipsticks. I have made a previous video on this particular vehicle, how to make a dipstick. This video is not going to cover how to make one. I have a video for that. You can search my page for that particular video. I just had a comment that somebody asked me if this would work for a Nissan Sentra. And I cannot speak for any other vehicle other than my own. But the process of figuring out how long your dipstick is going to be is the same. So for instance, for my particular vehicle, all I did was pull this thing out here. This is still the original dipstick that I made a while back and still use to this day. Anyway, so I can't get that to focus. Anyhow, the way I made this work was to just simply stick a random wire all the way down in here until it hit the bottom of the pan. So obviously all your dipsticks, like even your engine, this dipstick is not hitting the bottom of the oil pan. You don't want it to hit the bottom of the oil pan. You just want to, hitting the bottom of the oil pan is going to give you an idea of how long it's going to be. I mean, you're in at the end of making this whole thing, so you'll slip the whole wire down in there, and you'll hit the bottom and mark right at the top of the neck here, where the top of pull this out here. So you'll mark it. You'll slip the wire down in there. Say if I was hitting the bottom like right now, stick your finger down in there, mark it with the marker or whatever, and then cut it. And then after you smash the end of it like I did here, to fit inside the end. You had to make this thing flat for it to slip up inside of here. So I smashed it, and anyway, see, you do the same thing. Smash it, and then once you're done making it, just cut like that much off the bottom of it, just so it's not hitting the bottom of your pan. That's all I did. It's a very, very simple process. And in fact, if I just pop this thing open here, my transmission, I have a dipstick on this thing, but if I didn't, I would simply find the opening where it was, which in this case it's here. Pop this out. So you see that I've obviously have a dipstick. So let me just go grab some random wiring and just kind of run really quick what I would do to figure out how deep that is. Alright, I am rummaging through all of my junk wiring, and I don't know if I'll be able to find any particular wiring that's gonna work. That's for my stove. Alright, so there's my junk pile. This would work. Alright, I found some here. I'm just gonna... that's gonna work just fine. So I'm going to use a black wire because oil is going to show up on that fairly easy. Alright, so I've got my wire. Alright, so if I didn't have a dipstick, I'd take this wire, feed it down in there, if I can get this thing to focus really quick. I don't know if I can. There we go. Alright, so fit that thing right there, fish it down in there all the way till I feel it stop. Alright, so I can feel it stop right now, so I'm gonna just put my hand down in there and just stick my finger right at the top of the neck. Hold my finger there, pull it out, and right here is where you're going to cut it. right there. So let's just see if that's actually the same size as my other dipstick. Alright, so where I'm pinching is actually not long enough. So you definitely want to make sure you're hitting the bottom. So I know this can be tricky, but this is simply the process I took to figure out how much wiring I need to fit down in type of that. Also, the neck that I have down in here is a weird S shape. So whereas that one has only one slight curve, so I kind of got away with not having to fish around all that much. Anyhow, so I'm just going to keep talking here. Essentially, just like I said before, you fish that wire down in there and make sure it's hitting the bottom. Preferably, this is copper wiring, so it's quite flexible. You know, I can bend this super easy. Your dipstick is specifically designed to be somewhat stiff, but see how it's flat? It's meant to be, you know, also, it's meant to be flexible because it's thin and then thick, right? So it's meant to be flexible, but, you know, firm at the same time. The best way to get a decent dipstick, what I would recommend, however, I did not do that on my car. I used a wire. I do recommend finding some other dipstick in some other vehicle. Just go to your junkyard someplace and find like a long dipstick out of a transmission or your engine or something like that out of a bigger vehicle than what you have. So if I wanted something that would be as long as, you know, this, you know, dipstick, I'd probably just go find myself some big truck's dipstick, like a, you know, some Silverado or an F-150, something that's going to have a longer dipstick. Also, keep in mind that a lot of your newer vehicles are not going to have dipsticks at all. You're going to be looking for an older vehicle, probably somewhere in the early 2000s, when they still had, you know, dipsticks in vehicles. My particular car is an 03 Subaru Baja, so they still had dipsticks in these things. So just find yourself a fairly older vehicle with a long dipstick, and that will make it easier for you to find the depth of the transmission fluid. And I guess I should mention this now, not that it's a perfectly good time for it. In another video, I was showing people how to check the fluid level in their transmission. There is another way to check the fluid level. There is actually a bolt underneath that's kind of like an overflow bolt, kind of like on like a rear end or something on like a bigger truck. They have a fill port and a which is going to be, you know, at this level on the rear end, and then you have a drain port, which is way down here, obviously, so it can drain out. Your fill port is also where they want the level to be, and they have the exact same thing on this particular transmission. It's a CVT. All the specs I don't know, but let me just crawl up under here if I can see it. Ugh. Okay. Alright, so try to get this thing to focus here. So this is my transmission. I'm doing this without having this thing on stands, so it's gonna be a little difficult, and hopefully you can see without this thing being too crappy. Anyway, so this is gonna be your transmission pan, and that's your that's the bolt for it right here. So you would obviously take that off, let it drain, and then refill it with the same amount of oil that came out of this. And to make sure that you're not overflowing, this bolt right here. Focus, focus, focus. Sorry guys.
So this bolt right here, and I cannot do this. This is really difficult to do. All right. Hopefully that's focusing. So again, transmission pan, drain bolt, this bolt right here, that is going to be your overfilling safe. I really don't know what to call it. I'm not, a professional mechanic, but I've seen how the other mechanics done this. You do want this running at operating temperature, so whatever that is, 200 degrees or something like that. It has to be at full operating temperature. So you'll put the same amount of oil back in this thing that came out of it, and so you're letting your engine run. Warm up all that oil, let that oil expand, because oil does expand. And so you'll come up under here and pop this bolt out, okay? And if you overfilled it, it'll just drain right out of this bolt. And after it's done draining and there's only a slight trickle coming out, put that bolt back in and leave it. And that's kind of how that's how you will tell whether or not this has been overfilled. It will overflow, because I don't know if you can tell, this bolt here is about that much lower than this bolt. This bolt is up higher. So so just keep that in mind when you fill this back up. If you don't have anything coming out of here, that means you haven't put enough oil in. So just put, I don't know, put a couple more ounces of oil in, and put your dipstick back, and then pull this thing back out. And because you do want some kind of oil coming out to indicate that it's at the proper level. And if that's just a smidgen trickle, coming out, put your bolt back in and you're all set to go. So,
all right, I hope that was helpful. Hopefully the person responding on my comments was able to be helped by this, and hopefully it answers some questions on my previous video. I will eventually do another video on changing the trans fluid, because I'm coming up on having to do another oil change. I think it's been like 15,000 miles. So it's not that you're supposed to change it every 15,000, but it's just an excuse I have to. I mean, the oil's not brand new, but it will give me a chance to redo my previous video and hopefully make this a little more clear to anybody trying to do the same thing, and hopefully save upwards of $300 to $400 rather than going to the dealership, of which that's about what they would charge you. So hopefully this is helpful. Like, comment, subscribe if you want. I don't put up daily, weekly, monthly videos, but I just try to help people out as I go along. So enjoy, and be sure to comment. Thanks.